everybody. Welcome to another episode of Theater Tuesdays. And this is the show where I like to bring on friends and we talk about all things in musicals, stage, and theater. And it's so much fun. And I'm theater critic Rachel Wagner. And today I have with me my friend Hayden, who's been on this show a couple times before. And thank you so much for coming on Talking Theater with me.
Thank you for having me.
And for people that haven't seen you on the pod before, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about how you first developed the love of theater?
Well, as you heard, my name is Hayden. I was introduced to theater when I was really young. My parents really did instill that in me when I was about a toddler. So I've been on stage essentially since I was 3. And then through that, I kind of started finding my way in the musical theater world, which was really eye-opening and was a whole entire thing for me, just admiring that art form and how it propels story and just really loving that. And I've been addicted ever since.
Well, I know that you're a big movie fan too. What do you think are the, I guess, pros and cons to both art forms, and what do you love in particular about musical theater?
Well, on film, it is very hard to overplay all of your emotions, and you really have to have a fine line when you do a film because it's an entirely different medium, and the camera is essentially a new character in my eyes. And
Yeah.
on stage, you can get away with a lot. On film, you kind of have to either tone it down or adjust it up to the style of filmmaking.
Yeah. So, do you have particular shows that were really influential for you growing up?
Yeah, so I guess you could say my gateway show was actually Annie,
Okay.
which is, I think, is a pretty common
Yeah.
choice. But then when I was shown, one of my favorite teachers in second grade showed us the first act of Into the Woods. I was just really enchanted by it, and she let me take the VHS home. Remember VHSs?
Yeah.
And I watched the second act, and I was like completely amazed by it because I just thought it was I I think it was just it put in me this thought that you can experiment and do all these different unique wonderful things, and that just really left a lasting impression on me that I carry with me.
Yeah. I was gonna say, were you shocked by, because that's kind of an interesting thing to
Yeah,
only show the class the first act.
right, right. And then she let me have a Sweeney Todd the cast album
Okay.
after that. So I was maybe a little too young, but I think I turned out
Yeah.
somewhat marginally okay.
Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah. That's cool. Yeah, the first musical theater album that I ever had was my grandma got me a best of Andrew Lloyd Webber cassette tape. So we're really going back.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so it had obviously Memory and Another Suitcase, Another Hall, um, Phantom of the Opera, things like that. And that was very exciting. And then my grandma took me to see Phantom of the Opera. We'll talk about it a little bit later, but to see Phantom of the Opera in San Francisco. So that was the first like big spectacle show that I ever saw. And then I also went with my dad to see the Utrecht Shakespeare Festival, which is an Equity Tony Award winning uh, production, and they're great. And I know when I was little, I really valued anytime I was treated with what I thought was as an adult. When I was treated with that I wasn't silly or stupid. I hated being treated like a kid
Mhm.
when I was little. And so I remember going to see Fantasia, and that was like very exciting to me because that was a grown-up movie, and I've always loved animation, and I think that was sort of the same thing, like going to the Shakespeare Festival. That was like grown up to do, and so the fact my dad took me was like very exciting.
Yeah, I do actually have some friends who have done some shows with them. So,
Yeah, they're good. They're
yeah.
really, really good and expensive, but you pay for the
Yeah.
equity talent. And it was so cool. I went this year and saw a production of Midsummer's Night Dream, and it it wasn't just like a little bit raining. It was torrential downpour, like
Mm.
so hard. And I thought for sure they were gonna, cancel. But they must have like weather protected, gear and stuff. And they just plowed on. It was pretty impressive. It was very memorable.
Mhm. Wow.
Yeah, that was cool. That was cool. But yeah, and then I also remember going to see at the time I took a dance class, and my teacher was anybody's in West Side Story. And so those were like the early kind of theater memories that I had as a kid. The biggest disappointment of my young life was losing the lead to Our Town to my best friend. I was so jealous of her that she got the lead. But I have never been very good at auditions. Not that I do them very much anymore, but I when I was auditioning in high school, it was hard. I struggled. I don't know. It's funny because I could be like speaking in front of a big group and I'll be fine, but that one-on-one audition I think is very unnerving.
Yeah, I still get stressed out during
Yeah,
auditions, so
I think it's hard.
yeah.
But so when you were in high school, did you go to a creative arts high school?
I did not. I actually went to a French high school, which
Oh,
is another
okay.
story. But but I did throughout high school I was with a youth actors uh school, I guess, and we would do musicals like
Okay.
every couple of months to a year,
Hmm.
depending on when I was.
Yeah.
Um,
Do you have any memorable ones?
yeah, so I was actually the baker in Into the Woods, and that
Oh,
was
okay.
a real highlight for me.
Yeah.
Um, I was also in 25th annual Putnam County Spelling Bee,
Uh,
which I had a really good time with, and
yeah.
I think those
That's
are.
such a fun show because
Mhm.
I love the interactivity
Yeah.
with the audience. That's
It's a lot of
really funny. It's still the capybara. That's
fun.
my favorite joke. Yeah, I saw it on Broadway actually in
Yeah,
2006.
so did I.
That was really fun because theater in the round,
Yeah,
which is perfect for that show
yeah.
to do because it makes it so easy to get people from the
Yeah,
audience. And
yeah.
yeah, that one's a fun one. I was always, because I'm like the world's worst dancer. I absolutely terrible, and so I'm just put me way in the back. You can't see me. Like I love being a part of it, but I just
I
can't.
I think I've lately been calling myself a 2.5 threat because
Okay.
I need a lot of time to get it right, is what I've
Hmm.
noticed. It's like if
Yeah.
you give it to me like weeks in advance and I
Yeah.
practice and practice for constantly at home, like then I'm eventually competent, but I am useless if you give it to me right away.
Yeah, I envy people that have that natural rhythm. Ugh, because I just don't. But yeah, so I did a couple. We did Bye Bye Birdie, which I think is a perfect show for high school. It just has so many group scenes, it has so many solos. It's so fun.
Have
I
you
mean, I hate the mother character's the worst, but other than that, it's I think it's a really good one for high school.
yeah, have you by any chance have you seen the Cut for Time Saturday Night Live sketch
Oh no.
about the of a it's a Will Ferrell as a drama teacher casting Bye Bye Birdie and like
Oh
all
no, I haven't
being
seen that.
anxious to check the cast list. It's very relatable.
That's
It's like
funny.
theater kids know how it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and so then we did the Whiz, which you wouldn't like basically an all white high school would never do
Yeah.
that now. But at the time we had fun. And
Yeah.
it is a good show for, I think, younger audiences if it can be cast correctly, because it does have a ton of solos and a
Mhm.
ton of group scenes. And
Yeah.
I feel like with high school, you really want shows where there are a lot of ensembles so that
Yeah.
people can try it out. Because
Yeah.
I mean, how do you know if you're good at something if you never get a chance to try
Yeah.
it?
I did hear of a high school that did Evita, which is a horrible choice for a high school. And it's just because it's
Well,
like constant solos and like the ensemble is just
no
kind of
ensembles, yeah.
is they're just all lumped together and it's like not
Yeah.
don't know
Plus,
what
I mean, it's kind of got some mature
Mhm.
material. I mean,
Yeah.
I would think some parents would probably
Yeah. It's
wonder about that.
yeah.
I was only thinking, Love Simon when they're doing cabaret. I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know how many high schools
I
that would
did do
do
that
it.
in high school though.
Really?
I did do that when I was in high school. I did play the Nazi role, which is quite funny considering I'm Jewish.
Oh
So
my gosh. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, we did those, and then the rest was just plays. I was cast in Little Abner, but then I ended up getting sick, and so I had to drop out. But it was fun. I mean, I would love to do something like that again, but it's just here in Utah, like everything is so competitive. I, even the smaller roles, everything is just, I don't know. I feel like they don't
mhm.
have any space for terrible dancers.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's fun to be a patron slash critic.
Yeah.
But yeah, so a lot of people are, I've heard people say that theater these days, Broadway these days, is like an amusement park. That
Mhm.
you've got your Disneys, you've got your, Shrek, you've got your Back to the Future, these kinds of things. Almost every single musical is based on a movie. How do you feel about that? Do you think that there's validity to that? Do you worry about original content?
Yeah, I haven't really heard it phrased like that before, but um I do think there is a lot of truth to it. I do sometimes think that there is a worry with just kind of it's the movie, but now we added music.
Mhm.
Um, variety.
Yeah, I mean, because I loved Back to the Future. I had a super fun time
Yeah,
with it, but it is like basically shot for shot. I mean,
yeah,
every costume is identical to the movie. I mean, aside from adding songs, it's pretty much exactly the movie.
yeah,
So, I mean, I was like, if somebody doesn't like the movie, don't see that. Like, you will
yeah,
not be won over by
yeah,
this. But luckily, most people like it,
yeah.
and so
I
it
think it,
worked. But
yeah. So while I do like worry about it, I do kind of have this hope that, and this kind of also goes for the film industry as well, with them
mhm,
kind of just reimagining and like remaking and rebooting.
yeah.
I do think that I hope it doesn't get too much, but I hope that there's enough original stuff getting made that it doesn't end up being too
Mhm.
homogenous.
Yeah, yeah. So you live in LA, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So, but it seems like you get out to New York a couple. I mean, it seems like fairly frequently.
Semi
Get out there.
frequently.
Yeah, and it seemed like I think you did a trip. Have you done a trip this year?
I've done a trip this
Yeah,
in last year.
last year. Okay. Yeah.
Last year, and I did go to college in New York, so
Hmm.
at Sarah Lawrence.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I am pretty familiar with the area. And
Yeah. But it's fun. I mean, you must get to see a lot or have potential to see a lot of tryouts that they do in LA.
yeah, I it's kind of I feel like I usually more see the tours when they come here.
Hmm.
Um that's because tryouts are I feel like that's tryouts are more common in like Chicago, Washington, DC,
Toronto.
etc. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
I am, fingers crossed, I might be planning on taking a trip to Chicago to see the new Death Becomes Her musical.
Oh,
Just because I love
that'd be
that,
fun.
just because I love that movie. And you saw did you see Company in the new one with Patty LuPone?
Hmm. Hmm.
Because one of the actors in that is going to be playing Goldie Hawn's role.
Oh, cool.
I'm trying to remember the
That's
character's
too
name and
too
company. Sarah.
oh, okay. It's too
Sarah.
bad because I think
Jennifer
Megan Hilty
Smart.
would be like absolutely perfect
And
for.
she's the other one, I
Oh,
think.
she is?
Yeah, so it's Megan Hilty and Jennifer Smart.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, she would be perfect for that role. And I'm looking forward to that. That seems like a smart fit, very theatrical in the
Yeah,
movie. So it makes
yeah,
sense. Yeah. And I feel like it will translate well to a modern audience.
yeah.
Its themes and kind of getting it feels very similar to like Barbie
Hmm.
in a lot of ways. And yeah, and I mean, I kind of wonder, I wouldn't be surprised if we get some variation of a Barbie musical
Yeah.
down the road, because I know I was surprised, frankly. I mean, I enjoyed the movie and I love Barbie, but I was surprised it did as well as it did. And because I thought, this is kind of weird, this is sort of experimental, kind of strange. And I guess I didn't really think that Barbie was as popular of an IP as it. I mean, obviously I knew it was popular, but not. I didn't think it would be one of the most successful movies of all time, because I feel like it's sort of treated somewhat disparagingly a little bit, like, oh, Barbie, kind of a thing. So
Yeah.
I was surprised that it did as well as it did.
Yeah. I mean, I was, my thing was, if you were to ask me a year ago, like not a year ago, but like five
Yeah,
years ago, say you are going to be in love with a Barbie movie, I'd be saying, what are you
yeah,
talking about? You're insane. But
right.
then it was announced Greta Gerwig was doing it. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm
Yeah,
in.
yeah,
And I think that was kind of what ended up getting the
yeah.
ball rolling.
I think so. And I heard people say, oh, they shouldn't have had the 2001 introduction, but I actually disagree, because I think that the homage, I think it sort of set the tone. Okay, this is
Mhm.
the kind of movie that you're going to be seeing. This is going to be
Yeah,
different. This is going to be weird. And
yeah,
I think that was actually pretty effective.
yeah. I
Yeah.
I thought that was hysterical.
Yeah.
Are you a fan of Rachel's reviews? Do you look forward to Family Movie Night, Female Film Critics panels, or the Talking Disney podcast? If so, please consider supporting the podcast by becoming a patron. As a patron, you get to access monthly events such as the watch-alongs and Q&As, where you get to talk to stars and find out the behind the scenes of the movie making industry. And you can pick what I review for Family Movie Night or even become a guest on the podcast. Podcasts and YouTube channels are expensive, and I really, really could use your help. I would so appreciate it. You also get to be a member of the Facebook group where we talk about all the films that we're seeing, and we have so much fun. Go to patreon.com/hallmarkies and select one of the Rachel's fan tiers. That's patreon.com/hallmarkies.
Let's talk about our main topic. We're talking about sort of, because this is going to air on Halloween, so it's sort of fun. And we thought it would be fun to talk about darker, horror, spooky kind of shows. I'm working on a article for Onstage blog that I'm doing, where I'm going to be, it's called Ranking the October Shows. So shows that can kind of to capture that sort of aesthetic and feel. And so we have our top 5, and you had some honorable mentions that you wanted to share.
I did. So first one was I've already mentioned was Rocky Horror Picture Show, which is one that I really love, and it's really close to my heart, so it was difficult putting it here,
This is hard when
um
you only have 5.
but like but if don't yell at me, it's probably in the number 6 spot if it were top 6.
Yeah.
Um Another one would be Evil Dead the musical, which is very fun.
Have you actually seen it?
I have I have seen certain videos of
Yeah, same.
and
But I've heard they actually like spray
they
like
do,
blood
and
and stuff into the audience.
I'm sad that I missed them being able to do that.
Yeah, that would be it would be an experience.
My other shows that I would like to mention is Death Note, the musical, which is, yes, based on the anime.
Uh-huh.
And it was, the music was actually written by Frank Wildhorn. And there was recently a production in the West End that did very well. And that's getting a cast album soon, which is very exciting. And it's a lot better than it has any right to be as an adaptation of that anime.
That's cool.
That's really a well done show. And final thing would be just mentioning Repo the Genetic Opera, which, if you are a gorehound, this is a musical from the director of some of the Saw films, and the cast includes Sarah Brightman, Anthony Head,
Oh, wow.
as well as Paris Hilton, which he actually does pretty decently in the movie, all things considered, and it's it's a very culty type weird movie that has its own fan base and might be your cup of tea if you're into it.
Cool.
So,
Well, my honorable mentions, I have Sweeney Todd as an honorable mention. I'm actually seeing it tonight. I saw it just a couple weeks ago. I'm excited though. Tonight I'm seeing it. It's called The Empress. It's a very small, intimate kind of theater in the round type theater. And so I think that's going to be a cool environment to see Sweeney Todd in. So that'll be fun. And I do think it has some really standout songs, some great some bold moments. And so I enjoy it. And then I have Assassins as an honorable mention because it's all about, all these assassins, and I think it has sort of a darker feel to it. And then I have Jekyll and Hyde as an honorable mention. I think there are some problems with the book on that one. It takes forever for the transformation to happen, but I do think it has some quality songs. And I saw it, I've actually seen it 3 times recently. But the first time I saw it was just an amazing production. The Jekyll did such a great job transforming with the transformation of showing both sides, and just he was so good. And so it can be a fun show, I think, if it's done right. So those are my honorable mentions. What do you have at number 5?
So at number 5, I'm going to mention, this is somewhat of a personal choice, but it's actually the Beetlejuice musical, which, for one thing, it is a show that is kind of close to my heart for some reasons. It was the last show that I saw with my mother before she passed away from breast cancer after several on-again, off-again battles with that. And
well, so the themes of the show would definitely resonate. I can see that.
Yeah, and I actually did sing the song Home at her funeral, and so I do kind of hold that show in like kind of a special place. But all that aside, kind of, what I really appreciate about the show is, we were talking earlier about how a lot of movies are just the movie, but they add songs in between. but the Beetlejuice musical really does not do that. They really just kind of took a skeleton of the movie and just kind of did their own thing with it. And I really appreciate that. And in a lot of ways, and this is going to be controversial to some people, I think it, in a lot of ways, kind of improves upon the movie. Just because I feel like, as much as I love the movie, which is also so close to my heart, and I modeled myself after Lydia Dietz when I was a kid, I do think one thing about the movie is that the screenplay is a bit oddly paced.
Yeah.
There isn't really so much of a proper structure to it, which is all well and good. But I kind of appreciate myself the structure that they had in the musical, that and added some new elements and really gave it a voice, gave Lydia Dietz a voice in her losing her mom, because the movie kind of glosses over that.
Right. Yeah, and the production values were outstanding. I've seen it twice. I wasn't as big a fan of it on the national tour as I was when I saw it on Broadway. But yeah, it had some of the Broadway production was some of the most outstanding production values I've ever seen on a show. It was really incredible, especially that whole sequence when she's walking into the afterlife. That was really good. So I could see why. Yeah, definitely. And I think it will be a show that once it does get out there to regionals, I can see it being pretty popular. Yeah. I can see it taking some of the spots, the Addams Family, which I do enjoy, and I just saw an outstanding production of Addams Family at here locally, really good, and it's fun. But I do think that the book has problems. The whole full disclosure at the end of this first act is so long. I'm just like
it's very long, but I do enjoy that.
It's a fun show. Yeah, it's a fun show. Yeah, definitely. Especially if you get, like, in this case with the one I saw, they had it, the Gomez and Morticia were excellent, and that makes a big difference with that show.
Yeah, I did actually see that in previews when it was on Broadway with Nathan Lane and Bebe Neuwirth.
Well, you should see it again if you get a chance, because evidently they made like tons of changes to it when it went out to regionals.
They did. I've seen a handful of productions out here, because it has definitely like gotten a following.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, my number 5 is A Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder. This is a really funny show, and I think it counts in this category. I mean, you got a lot of murders, and you got a lot of, like, an overall aesthetic of sort of mystery, and obviously with this one, whoever plays the Die Squith is going to be a deal breaker. Like, if they are funny and they pull it off, and I've been lucky. I've seen it twice. Both times I had a great Die Squith who was hilarious, and it's practically a well, not a one-man show, but I mean, it's so dependent upon, because he plays so many characters. But I thought I think the songs are kind of forgettable. I mean, I couldn't tell you a single song from the show, but it was, the script is very funny, and it keeps you kind of guessing how they're going to pull this off, and I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. Have you seen this one?
I have. I agree. It's very enjoyable.
Yeah. Well, what do you have next?
So next, I have one that will require some special explanation. So number 4 is actually Carrie the Musical. And there's I could go on and on about the history of this show, and there's a podcast and a book detailing the history of this show. because it is a very, very complicated history. And those are the podcast and the book are both called Out for Blood. If you are interested in learning more. But so the show started out in the late 1980s by the Royal Shakespeare Company, and they were obviously like taking it from the Stephen King novel, and they put the show on, and it had a cast including, when it was in the UK, it had Barbara Cook, and then when they brought it to Broadway, it was Betty Buckley playing the role of the mother in the film, in the musical, and she was also in the movie as a gym teacher. Anyway, so the original version of the musical is one of the biggest flops of all time. It closed after weeks, and that's partially because they had no idea what to do with it, and there were a lot of very strange choices made with the costumes and the sets, and it was expensive to produce, and it bombed. But it kind of started gaining a little bit of a following because there were a lot of people that appreciated what was there. And what is there is a very beautiful, there are some very, very beautiful songs and beautiful moments between Carrie and her mother. And it's a complicated relationship, and it's abusive, but like, it is like so eerie and very chilling. But then on the other side, they have all of these high schoolers, which are in a completely different show. It is unrecognizable as the same show. And that's one of the problems. But there was something that appealed to a lot of people. And it's worth mentioning, there was not a cast recording for this original production. It is all bootlegs and that. And that ended up kind of, I think, saving the show, because then it didn't get revived. They called it revised. They called it a revisal, so to speak, because they did like kind of do a lot of work to it. And now it's very popular in high schools and everything. So, but however, I feel like when they tried to kind of even it out, it did kind of weirdly lose some of its luster to me, because instead of being kind of making the choices that it did, that it ended up appealing to me, it kind of felt a little softer in a way.
Yeah, made it a little safe.
Didn't quite vibe with me, and I still do like the new version, don't get me wrong. But so my recommendation personally is there is a cut on YouTube that was edited by someone I have come to know through this fandom, actually. And it's called The Master Cut, Carrie the Musical, and it kind of splices in like rehearsal footage, Broadway footage, UK footage, like of the original production, to kind of showcase what a complicated kind of beautiful mess it was. Because it is a mess. There is no getting around the fact that they made the choice to have high schoolers wearing either togas or spandex because of reasons.
Oh wow.
Choices were made, but and a disco ball that cost £1,000 or something, and then that got kicked off. And also Debbie Allen did the choreography for the show, so it's just a lot. But anyway, long story short, it's a show that is really close to me because I did discover it when I was in high school and a huge Stephen King fan. And yeah, might be your
Cool.
kind of thing if you're into that.
We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies merch store.
Are you looking for that perfect gift for the postable, hardy, or Hallmarky in your life?
What about getting that t-shirt or hoodie that will help you stand out at your next holiday party?
Now is the time to check out the Hallmarkies merch store.
Full of festive designs by artists like Jessica Miller, Carrie from Hallmark Comics, and more.
You can even have more than just shirts, but totes, cell phone cases, notebooks, mugs, and more.
And it isn't just Hallmark. We have designs for Anna Green Gables, Man from Snowy River, The Nanny, and more.
Every purchase at the merch store goes to help support the podcast and allows us to make the great content you know and love.
There are frequent sales, so go to tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies or see the link in the description.
That's tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies.
My number 4 is admittedly partly nostalgia. But like I said, the first show, big spectacle show I ever went to was Phantom of the Opera. And so I have that at number 4. I can see, you know, some of the flaws. I know a lot of people kind of groan when they hear it, but I do think that for the spectacle and the awe of a show, it's really high up there for me. I got to see it again before it closed last year. That was really fun. And I enjoyed it. And I think it has, I mean, some really good songs. Wishing You Were Somewhere Here Again is one of my favorites. I mean, the story is kind of weird, but I just have such fond memories of it. And I think it's a fun show if you want just some like over the top spectacle.
Yeah.
So what do you have next?
Yeah. And real quick for Phantom, I just want to say it's the longest running show on Broadway for a reason.
Yeah.
You know, it does its job. It knows exactly what it is. And it really made an impression on people.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
My number 3 pick is kind of a cheat, but it's sort of like a triple. It's kind of a trilogy in a sense. How familiar are you with Starkid Productions?
I'm not.
So Starkid Productions kind of got their name in. They're based in the University of Michigan, and it was their like college theater department. They set up Starkid Productions, and they blew up with one might know a Harry Potter musical, a Harry Potter sequel, etc.
Oh yeah, okay. I know that.
Where Darren Criss was of Glee fame, obviously started out, and they've kind of been they're still going and doing a lot of shows. Now they're in Los Angeles and Chicago, respectively, doing their thing. And recently, they have this sort of loose trilogy called the Hatchetfield trilogy, and it's like this kind of universe where a lot of the characters and stuff will end up popping in to each other. So it's a little similar to kind of the Marvel thing, like, and it's sort of a multiverse thing anyway. But they have 3 shows set in a town called Hatchetfield. The first one is called The Guy Who Didn't Like Musicals, and that show is essentially a zombie apocalypse, except the zombies start dancing and singing, and then it's the end of the world. And it revolves around that. The second one is called Black Friday, and that's kind of a Black Friday sale also leading to the apocalypse due to an evil doll that everybody wants on Black Friday. The third one just came out this month on my birthday, incidentally, and that one's called Nerdy Prudes Must Die, and that's kind of a slasher high school parody. And these are all like very, very funny shows, and the songs are really catchy, and they're all up on YouTube for your enjoyment. And if you want some like kind of raunchy, fun musical enjoyment, then by all means check out the Hatchetfield trilogy.
That's cool. Yeah, that's cool. Well, my next three are all plays, straight plays there, so I don't have any more musicals. But next is it's almost hard to rank because it's you know, so been around for so long, is Macbeth. I have as number three, obviously with the witches and it's very dark and all the murders and I think it is pretty much, I mean, I don't think anybody needs me to defend Macbeth, but I think it is pretty much a perfect play in the way that it builds tension. So when you get up to the out damn spot scene, it's really earned, and you're invested in these characters and who they are and everything. And so I think it's, I mean, we did top five, my favorite Shakespeare, and I had Macbeth, I think, as my second or third, very high. I think it's really good.
Yeah. So not to like break anybody's heart or anything, because I do think there was a lot of value in Macbeth, but for me personally, it's actually not one of my personal favorite Shakespeare's. I had to choose, but that's just kind of a me thing, I think. And I wonder if that's kind of just because I did end up, I think when I was younger, I did kind of end up hyping it to myself because it had witches and like then like the lead up. But like when I first saw it, I felt like I was in love with like the first two acts, and then kind of the third and fourth act began
kind of start to lose you.
And then in the fifth act, I was in it again. But like for me personally, there was like a lag in the middle. But like that's honestly just on me, probably.
That's fair. I'm not a big fan of Romeo and Juliet, so we all have those. Yeah. So it's fine.
Yeah.
What will you have next?
So next we have talked about it is Sweeney Todd, which I am diehard Sondheim forever, and this is just one of those shows that I just love the melodrama and the music, and I don't think I need to explain that much. So what I will do is I will plug a YouTube video by a creator I really like. There's a YouTube creator called Sideways who did a video on the music in Sweeney Todd that I think is really, really well done. And he discusses how Sondheim actually uses the DSE ray throughout the score and like uses that as a motif throughout. And he really goes into detail on how it really does kind of foreshadow everything, and you can really see how smart and meticulous Sondheim was when he was creating the show. And yeah, I just really love the melodrama. And my personal pick to watch would be the George Hearn, Angela Lansbury Pro Shot. And I actually do quite like the movie as well, but the Pro Shot is my go-to in that show.
That's a good one. My next one is, like I said, a straight play. It's called The 39 Steps, and this is a really funny parody on the book / movie of 39 Steps, and I've really enjoyed it every time I've gotten a chance to see it. But basically it's about this innocent man who kind of stumbles into this secret society where this person is murdered in this, and he gets kind of on the run because people think he was the murderer, and all along the way he keeps figuring out new clues and it's very, very funny. There's whole scenes where the the lead actor will keep changing hats, and he's having different discussions, and he's got like the officer hat and then his hat, and he's playing all these different characters. And I just think they only have 4 people in the cast, and so they all play like a ton of characters, and it's just a lot of fun. If you ever get a chance to see it, I really recommend it.
Yeah, I think I recall seeing ads for it when they might have had a production out here, but it sounds like a really fun time.
Yeah. All right, what's your number 1?
So my number 1 pick would be Little Shop of Horrors, which
it's so fun.
I just really, really like the show a lot, and it is actually the first show that I saw on Broadway, full stop. So there is that for me, and beyond that, I feel like a lot of people do just really like the show, and I think a lot of the magic just comes from how great of a lyricist Howard Ashman was. It's just so unique, and he was a wonderful talent. And he was gone far too soon, and I really, really wish he could have stayed around to see how much of an impact he had. And I think it's a very funny script. I think the music is very catchy and fun, and if one watches the movie, what I will say is I will die on this hill is that I will always go to the director's cut that was recently released. And I am still mad at the studio audiences back in the day for completely making them rewrite the ending and just making it happy, because I think that sort of undercuts the message of the show.
Yeah.
But
I don't think I've seen the director's cut.
Yeah, the director's cut was released pretty recently, and it's somewhat for some it might go on a little too long in some portions of it, but the director's cut is my favorite, and that's how the stage production ends as well.
Yeah.
So that's the more accurate version in my eyes. So cool.
I've seen Little Shop of Horrors a number of times, including my sister was in it and when she was in high school. And so I've seen it many times. I saw it in the current off-Broadway last year, and it was my favorite of all the shows that I saw that trip, actually. It was really fun and funny, and it's got some great songs, like you say, and Suddenly Seymour, Somewhere That's Green, are probably my favorites. But it's a good choice. My number 1 is, again, a straight play. It's Wait Until Dark is my number 1. I think I love the movie, and that was my first introduction to it, actually. And now I've seen the play a number of times, including fairly recently. And what it does such a good job of building tension, and hopefully you get it in a place where they're able to get it really dark. And they even put in the most recent production, they covered the exit signs, and they told everybody that that's what they were going to do, and so it was safe and everything. But so it was completely dark, and that just works so well it's about this this blind woman, and so and getting stalked, and so then there's an incredible jump scare moment that really works, and it works really well in the movie. It works really well in the show, and you're invested. And what I find very impressive is that, at least the versions I've seen of this, like every action, even if you think it's not meaning anything, comes back. Like if she puts down a knife or even a fork or anything, like if she puts down anything, she puts down a book, it's intentional. And then you really pay attention to like the little things that she's doing, the little things that the other people, the characters are doing. And oh yeah, there it is. That's there. And that's comes back. And it's a really tight story, and like nothing's wasted. So it's a good one. Yeah. What you think, and what would be on your list in the comment section or on Twitter? And Hayden, how can people follow you on social media, all that fun stuff?
So I'm admittedly taking a bit of a social media detox lately. So I'm probably not going to be sharing the information right now, but I really appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, thanks for coming. I appreciate it. It was a lot of fun. And yeah, keep us posted on everything that's going on. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all over social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. Check that out. Make sure you check out the playlist of all of the Theater Tuesday episodes. I'd love to hear your thoughts on all of those and spread the word about Theater Tuesdays, because I think it's really fun. And if you're listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. We really appreciate that. And if you are listening on YouTube, please give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. Appreciate that so much. We also have a Patreon group, which is a lot of fun, and the merch store where we have new I'm a Theater Girl designs, kind of inspired by Barbie, and other fun designs. So check that out. And thanks again, and we'll talk to y'all later. Bye.